wreck avoidances,
Stay low. Keep high, stay low.
daring passes,
Oh, you're gonna get it.
silly jumps,
Oh my god, a drive-through.
the thrill of victory,
They're against the wall. Good one, Mark. Stay low.
and the occasional mishap.
My sim crashed.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
A new beginning with familiar faces. For the first time, Lionheart is going back to its roots. 18 races to determine who is the best and the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-an-hour Indy cars, inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one inaugural champion, whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. Find out next. The Lionheart Speedway Series, presented by DMLC Racing Channel, starts now.
After a chaotic fight for the win at the Tricky Triangle, the Lionheart Racing Series and its Speedway Series, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel, has made its way to the Hawkeye State for one of the most important races of the year. Robert Malechka III has opened the eyes of his competitors after scoring back-to-back wins. Despite missing several rounds, the factory-backed driver sits just 59 points back of field charger Barrett Rolfe. Now, with the pressure on to perform, can he try and come away with the W at Iowa Speedway, or will his championship hopes get lost in the cornfields? We're about to find out. This is the Graphics Esports 175 at Iowa, presented by Midwest Simulations. Hello everyone, and welcome to RaceSpot TV and ESTV's coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. My name is Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Andrew Kinsella for today's coverage, with Arjuna Kankipati in the producer's seat. You can follow along with live timing and scoring thanks to our partners at ATVO by going to racespot.tv/Indy to follow along with your favorite teams and drivers in the virtual world of motorsport. On that note, let's dive straight into our Sim Experience Countdown to Green as we get ready for Iowa Week. Both the Speedway Series and the IndyCar Series are coming to Iowa Speedway for action, but for the Speedway side, the pressure is on. Just 5 races to go, and now it's the matter of who can conquer this track, Andrew.
Absolutely. This is a huge challenge for all of our championship hopefuls today, Justin. We have a very tricky track, a very tough ask for most of these guys here today. And what you need to do here at a track like Iowa is you need to have a lot of patience. I've talked about this at a few races before, but at a short track like this, Iowa Speedway, very quick laps, lots of patience, and working traffic is going to be very, very key.
Let's take a look at how things have turned into the driver's standings. As mentioned, Barrett Rolfe is at the top of the standings, presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. But things, keep in mind, are fairly tight, and this includes the drop week so far. Matt Taylor is close behind, with Tony Schowen and Alexis Newsom also within decent range. But keep in mind, as talked about, Robert Malechka III has the pressure on Andrew. He only has 9 starts in his credit, so he's had 2 less starts than everyone else around him in these standings.
Yeah, Robert Malechka, he's behind the 8 ball, but he is not letting his foot off the throttle. As you mentioned, he was the winner last time out, and he is full speed ahead, trying to get up towards the front of this field with Barrett Rolfe I think another story, though, is look at that five of the top 6 here are rookies. We have Tony Schowen is the only veteran in and amongst that top 6 there that are really the sort of firm favorites for that championship. And I think that's a story that these rookies, as the season have worn on, they've gotten more experience and they are really getting a lot more comfortable and proving to be very tough competition here in the Lionheart Speedway Series.
And it's been seen when they've gone to the IndyCar Series as well. Several have been contenders on that side. But taking a look at the team standings presented by HyperX, Adrenaline Motorsports has been at the top of their game all season, Andrew. But Team Race First Red, Factory Backed, and Team Race First Black have all been battling hard in amongst their group as well. Factory Backed, in fact, sliding just 10 points back of Team Race First Red entering today.
Yeah, it's been really a tale. I think the Adrenaline Motorsports, they got off to a really strong start, but Race First and Factory Back, they've really stepped up their game here lately, and they've been just slowly chipping away at that lead that Adrenaline Motorsports had. Adrenaline didn't have a very good day at Pocono last time out, and Race First did, and I think that Adrenaline can definitely hang on to this, but they've definitely got to be looking in their rearview mirror and eliminating mistakes and really turning in some of those veteran drives from that lineup of Joe Branch, Tony Schowen, and Chris Stouffer. If they can keep that consistency up, they should be able to close this one out, but it's going to be a tight battle right to the end.
And that could come into precedence today. We'll get to the reasons later on as we look at your rookie standings presented by Butt Kicker. And as talked about, the rookie class has been outstanding. Barrett Rolfe has shown speed all season. He's been able to charge through the pack at tracks you don't expect it. In some cases, going from the 20s to the race lead in just a couple laps. Matt Taylor has showed a lot of improvement in this series. Alexis Newsom has showed great speed, but hasn't had good luck recently. And Robert Malechka, in turn as well, has also been very quick. He almost, in fact, came away with an IndyCar Series victory, was a competitor at Twin Ring Motegi there. But don't forget about the drivers making some late season charges, like DeGroot, Brigney, and Fowler, who've been gaining some decent amounts of momentum in the past few months.
Absolutely, this rookie race is still wide open, just like the championship. As you mentioned, Barrett Rolfe, I think you talked about this at the end of the Pocono race there, Justin. Barrett Rolfe really needs to get a good qualifying effort in, especially at a place like Iowa. This is the type of track where anything can happen and people are liable to spin or things can happen right in front of you and you just can't avoid it. So Barrett Rolfe here today can't afford to be back in the pack like he has been so many times. And this is a potential tripping point for him if he does find himself back there. So look for the better qualifiers such as Robert Malechka to possibly be cutting into Barrett Rolfe's lead here at Iowa.
Put this into emphasis, Barrett Rolfe's average starting position is in the 18s this season. Not what you expect from your points leader. But on that note, let's take a look at your series details tonight, presented by Minus 273. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. French feeling gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable high spandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz. Don't forget to also use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders. And as throughout the season, drivers have to rely a lot on their hands and feet with the Dallara DW12 because even with custom fixed setups, you do not have the in-car tools, and turn to you, Andrew, because you are the setup master when it comes to the Lionheart Racing Series. What will drivers be feeling with those custom fixed setups today?
Yeah, so the setups today, I think, have a fair bit of downforce in them. So what you're going to see is there's going to be a lot of close racing, a lot of side-by-side action. It's going to be tough for people, though, to actually get that pass done. And I think that getting the pass done cleanly, not drifting up out of your lane, that's going to be very, very key for these guys. They're going to have to be on and off the throttle at both ends of the corners, especially in traffic, just to make sure that they're getting around this corner and this track safely. It's going to be a difficult race, but I think it's going to be a very entertaining race with a lot of coming and going, a lot of strategy, and this should be some great action here tonight, Justin.
I'm curious to see how this could fare out as well. This is a track over the past few years in particular. Remember the Retro Series race as well here earlier in 2021 being very difficult to pass at. But for 7 races in 6 years with the DW12 within the Hawkeye state for the Lionheart series, in particular when it was the IndyCar series, they had 7 different winners, Andrew. And for a lot of those races, they've been pretty intriguing. They've never finished under caution, and the closest margin, just a 10th, the largest, just above a second.
Yeah, this is a track that breeds unpredictability, Justin. There's so many little things about the track that can really trip a driver up. There's a big bump coming just at the entrance to turn 2 that can upset the car if you're on the bottom lane. The pit entrance and exit here is very, very tricky. There's a lot of opportunities for cautions to come at inopportune times, but at the same time, those cautions can sort of mix up the field and put people where they're not necessarily comfortable being, and it creates a lot of action, a lot of people coming and going, and I think that we're in for a fantastic race.
And you should know as well, you've won here in IndyCar Series action, although it was with the current chassis, the Laura IR18, back in Season 8. And that was amongst those, and the first overall in Iowa's history for that series under caution. Every other race was with the DW12 and did not finish under the yellow. But drivers are getting ready for the midst of qualifying. It is late evening in sim time, it's just past 9 o'clock, and it's worth noting that there are a couple drivers who are not going to be able to qualify tonight. They will have end of longest line penalties they will have to serve here at Iowa Speedway. That's Christopher Kresge for avoidable contact, his first of the season. Nick DeGroot was involved in that massive pileup on lap 66 involving Brian Beard and Luis Gonzalez-Nunez. That's seen him with his first avoidable contact of the year. While Chris Fowler, that's the big one. After all the momentum built up for about 2 months straight, with all the good luck going his way, Andrew, he's secured his first AC of the season. He'll have to start in the back after making contact with Benzie.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for Chris Fowler. He did post a really good finish at Pocono, but as you mentioned, he does have that end-of-line penalty, and it's going to make it very difficult here at Iowa Speedway. It's a very short track, less than a mile long, so with 30 cars on the track, it's going to mean that he's going to actually end up starting a substantial amount of the track behind the leaders come this green flag. So he's got a lot of work to do in front of him.
Drivers are in the midst of the qualifying laps, and let's talk about how you get around the circuit, Andrew, because there are many ways to do it, and one of the unique things when it comes to the circuit is it provides so many different lines, especially in 3 and 4. How would you approach it to get your best lap possible to get yourself to the front?
Yeah, so not only is there a number of different lines, but the lines also change as the race goes on and as the tires sort of wear out and wear in here. As you can see, Tony Schowen on screen, he's coming around at the very top, and then he's cutting down at the bottom on his qualifying lap here. So you can see along the bottom here, you can get at the very beginning of the stint, you can build up a lot of speed at the bottom, and it's the shortest way around. But the reason that he was at the top there is there's still a lot of grip there at the top, and as these tires wear out, look for that line to move up that racetrack, and that top line is eventually going to come in, and you're going to see people sending it around the outside in some cases, especially through turns 3 and 4.
And qualifying is moving very quickly, as to be expected at Iowa Speedway. This track just 0.88 miles, and it has an intriguing history, keep in mind as well, when it comes to the world of motorsport. It has had some crazy finishes. It's had IndyCar action as well as NASCAR stock car racing over its history. This facility overall, 10 to 12, or 12 to 14 degrees, I should say, a progressive banking, front stretch 10 degrees, 4 degrees down the back straight away. Matt Taylor, it's worth noting, is your pole sitter. That is a time a couple 100s quicker than George Anzaldo with a stellar run, and Robert Malechka III.
A great time for Matt Taylor, and he's doing exactly what he needs to do from second in the points. He knows that Barrett Rolfe, that qualifying is his Achilles heel, and he's put the pressure right now on Barrett Rolfe, laid down a statement saying, I'm going right for this championship and right for this win here at Iowa Speedway, and I'm going to do it from the pole here. As we have just a few drivers left still to come through. We're watching Chris Stouffer doing a lap. You see he, again, does that high line in through 3 and 4, and then down and drops down and really pinches it through his fast lap. And we'll see whether Christopher can put himself up near that front as well.
We'll see how Stouffer fares out. You see him move towards the middle of the top 10 to 8th position. But here is the intriguing part of all this. Barrett Rolfe has waited to the end of the session along with Alexis Newsom to set their respective qualifying times. They have 1 minute to get the times into the clock. The pole time again is a 16.890, so likely will get those times in. We'll see where Newsom comes out for factory back. And keep in mind, Alexis Newsom needs some good luck. Pit road entry has been a nightmare for that car for about a month straight.
Yeah, Alexis just, I think with her, she just needs to calm down just a little bit. She gets a little bit too excited in the car and makes mistakes, especially on a pit road, just trying to press that little bit too much. For her, she has a natural talent to really take it to these guys here in the Lionheart, and so I think she needs to take the pressure off herself as we see that she actually goes to the top of the timing screen right now. But
you know who doesn't? Barrett Rolfe. This is not what Barrett needed. A 16th place qualifying run. Another poor performance for the Ascari Auto Sport Machine and the former GT Academy driver. But qualifying has wrapped up. Drivers completed their 5 minutes of 2 solo qualifying laps. It's time to take a look at your starting lineup for the Graphics Esports 175 at Iowa, presented by Midwest Simulations. On the pole tonight, it's Alexis Newsom, putting in that time by 13th 1,000ths of a second for Factory Pack once more to lead the field to green alongside Matt Taylor. George Anzaldo, with one of his best qualified runs of 2021, starts in 3rd, with Robert Maluchka III, a rare non-pole for the Factory Pack machine, starts in 4th. Caleb Benchy starts in 5th position for Team Race vs. Orange, while Rod Hacker looks to try and bounce back from a rough IndyCar Series start at Twin Wheel Motegi. He starts 6th, 4 100s off the pole. Tony Schowen starts 7th tonight, with Charles Teed in 8th position. Chris Stouffer is in 9th position for Adrenaline Motorsports, right behind Schowen, his teammate. But Paul Jenkins, keep an eye on him, nearly came away with a Retro Series victory here by rolling the dice just a few months ago. Mike Rigney was one of the drivers in that respective race who flipped upside down after several incidents. He starts 11th in Speedway action. Ken Hacker starts in 12th tonight, the number 24 machine, right in front of Alexander Van de Sen. Then Joe Branch starts in 14th, with Dakota DeMade in 15th in his second career Speedway start, only made it a few laps at Pocono. Barrett Rolfe with a tough qualifying run, 84 100s off the pole, puts him 16th in front of Trevor Malone, the independent, and Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who's looking for a pick-me-up after being a contender at Pocono. Dean Mull starts 19th, the race winner from the start of the campaign, with Matt Wagner in 20th. Tying the time from Wagner was Alex Gouillon, with Jeff Jean in 22nd. The drivers who do not set times tonight: Nick DeGroot, AJ Musselman, 23rd, 24th, Matt Houston, Samuel Ryman, Chris Fowler. Howard Graff is in race control, and Gary Godso is a newcomer to the series. Keep an eye on him in the Team Race vs. Orange machine. Drivers continuing to make their way onto the racetrack. Just about all the competitors have made their way to the cars. Let's take a look at your featured cameras for tonight's action. There will be 2 different minus 273 onboard cameras tonight. George Anzaldo carries one of them in the number 6 machine. Chris Fowler will have the other one. Minus 273, the premier name and karting gloves. Visit minus273.biz. With the HyperX on board, it's AJ Musselman. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. And with the SimSport News onboard camera, it's Mike Rigney. SimSportNews.com, your home for the latest news from the virtual paddock. That's a look at your featured cams we have on board throughout the entire field for this evening's action. 205 laps your distance here from Iowa Speedway. And on that note, Andrew, your keys to victory for tonight if you want to take a victory here in the cornfields.
So number 1 for me, Justin, is that patience that I mentioned earlier. This is going to be a very long race, a lot of laps here, a lot of coming and going. Keeping patient and making your moves when you're comfortable and not trying to force things, that's going to be very key. staying out of trouble is another key, especially for guys like Barrett Rolfe, Chris Fowler, who are coming from the back. You've got to be able to make sure that you can stay out of trouble, avoid anything that happens in front of you, and keep your nose clean throughout this race. And then finally, the last key to this race is working that strategy. There's going to be a lot of cautions here today. It's a short track. It's going to be a little bit of a brawl out there today. I think that it's going to be a great race, but you have to work that strategy and come out on top through that as well.
Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and this is the start of the Graphics Esports 175 at Iowa, presented by Midwest Simulations. We're underway from Iowa. And it's 3 wide nearly already for second into turn 1. George Anzaldo, not taking any patience there, immediately charges up to second off the jump, as Alexis Newsom will lead lap 1.
Great start from George Anzaldo. He really stamped his authority on the front of this field right now. Alexis Newsom has gotten a great jump, and George Anzaldo and Matt Taylor are mixing it up already, and that is helping Alexis Newsom escape here. It's already very difficult to overcome the clean air from the front of the track, so this fighting in this back pack here is just letting Newsom escape, and this might be a little bit of a strategic error already for some of these drivers. As we see, Robert Malechka has now cycled his way past Matt Taylor and George Anzaldo towards the front of the race.
Common sight throughout the Lionheart Speedway Series this season. Factory Back has been on a roll, especially Newsom and Malechka III has seen the 1-2 like this throughout the season. But this is a hornet's nest and a half. These drivers can't get anywhere at this moment. Malechka III trying to battle with Matt Taylor still. Tony Schowen finally gets single file. Now he wants a piece of third position. This is all while Barrett Rolfe, mind you, is already at 5 positions.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that the bottom line is currently the place to be, I think, right now. Tony Schowen and Robert Malechka both made that bottom line work. George Anzaldo used the bottom line at the beginning, but then he went up the track. Now he's trapped on that top side. As we see, Barrett Rolfe already back in the pack is starting to make it 3 wide a little bit coming into turn 2. He goes back in line, but this is definitely a hornet's nest right here. These guys have got to settle down just a little bit. It's still very early in this race with only 7 laps complete.
Now the battle for second has caused Newsom to already run away by 1.1 seconds. We've seen massive leads before at Iowa in the past in Lionheart competition, not this big, as they settle down in front. You mentioned Barrett Rolfe making it 3 wide, by the way. He just took it 3 wide for 10th. He just bounced off somebody's side pod in the heart of the pack as well. That is Mike Rigney to his outside, as Barrett Rolfe scraped that side pod just about, now getting held up by Ron Hacker, who has lost 4 spots in the craziness.
Yeah, Barrett Rolfe is taking a lot of risks. He knows
Caution.
that with that... Oh, caution.
And 2 different incidents. Barrett Rolfe is one of them. The other is Matt Wagner. We're under yellow for the first time tonight, but Barrett Rolfe in a separate incident is demolished.
I was just about to say that Barrett Rolfe was taking a lot of risks, and that risk just hasn't paid off for Barrett Rolfe today. He knew that he had to get as far through the field as he could, but that was not a good risk for Barrett Rolfe to take, and that front wing is just destroyed, and he's probably got some more damage elsewhere on his car as well from the looks of it.
So again, the trigger for the caution flag was Matt Wagner, and this may be a second trouble point for Chris Fowler in a row. Barrett Rolfe, you seen, was trying to run the bottom. This was just a second after the caution flag came out too for Barrett.
Yeah, so unfortunately with Barrett, what happened was he hit that bump in turn 2, and just as he was lifting off the throttle, and that got him loose coming out of the tube. But you see Matt Wagner, that to me, Chris Fowler might be in for a second AC, if I'm going to be quite honest here. Second AC in 2 races, because he was riding very close, and you can't get in the back of someone like that at Iowa Speedway. You can't be running that close, especially that early in the race, if I'm being quite honest here, Justin. Chris Fowler is a good guy, clean racer, but that was not a smart move to be that close to Matt Wagner that early in the race.
So tough breaks for those drivers. Wagner, significant damage. Barrett Rolfe still in the pit lane for damage repairs as well. 19th on back, elected to come down and top off. Wing changes already at the minimum for Fowler, Ryman, and Matt Houston. Ralph and Wagner taking extended stops as mentioned. So this has not gone to plan for some of the drivers, but keep this in mind. The pit strategy for tonight, it's expected to be 58-59 laps on the fuel runs, Andrew, and in turn, it's a 3-stopper. We're still outside that window, it's worth noting, of it being a 2-stop for those who just topped off. So in our words, why not take something different?
Yeah, why not mix it up just a little bit, especially if you're near the back of the field right now. If no one else is coming in, you might as well mix it up. Try to change up your strategy just a little bit. One of the things with Iowa is you do actually go 2 laps down normally under green flag pit stops. So it can present an issue where if there's a caution during the pit cycle, some of these guys who are coming down pit road now, they might actually be able to trap some of these leaders either 1 or 2 laps down, and it could actually make much more of an impact than you think, even though they probably can't actually cut out a stop at this point. It's going to be very interesting as this race wears on, how these cautions fall and whether these guys who just pitted here can take advantage of it.
We're coming up to 193 laps to go to reset how this field is. It's Alexis Newsom at the front of the field. Tony Schauwen is up 5 spots. Christopher is up 6. Much to 3rd, shuffled back to 4th. Matt Taylor, George Zotto, Caleb Benchy rounding out the top 7. Charles Teed is also in 8th position. So a lot of the drivers in that second on back fight were really able to take advantage of everyone getting bottled up and holding each other up like that to gain those positions. We were talking about with Barrett, for example. Tony Schauwen and Christopher in the end, the benefactors to be able to gain those many spots, and we're looking like they may have been able to have the chance to break away before the caution.
Yeah, the Adrenaline Motorsports pair really went to the front there on that caution, or before that caution, but who this really hurt was Alexis Newsom, who had actually broken the draft to those cars behind her, and now those cars are right back on the back of her car. So Tony Schauwen and Christopher, they know they can't afford to let Alexis get away on this restart here, and they're going to be all over her as I believe we come to 1 to go with this caution here, Justin.
Keep in mind, when it comes to Iowa Speedway, one of the common threads on the iRacing service with this track is this facility is known for its long caution periods, upwards of 5 caution laps per yellow flag. So keep that in mind for some of the strategy later on today, as 2 drivers, make it 3, are rolling the dice to top off some more. AJ Musselman, Gary Godso, along with Matt Houston. But these drivers getting ready for the restart here. Now it's the question of, can anyone try and make a pounce on Alexis Newsom with how difficult making a move with the aero push can be?
Yeah, I think it's all down to this restart. If Tony Schauwen and Christopher can stay in Alexis Newsom's draft, I think that they've got a shot, but it's got to be soon after this restart, but because there's going to be a lot of aero push starting to come in very quickly here.
So we'll try this once more. 191 to go this time by Alexis Newsom, goes on pace car. Back on her way from Iowa Speedway, and what a launch for the factory-backed machine, leads by 5 car lengths. Heading off into the corner, no one able to pounce quite yet amongst the top 10 positions, fairly calm on the restart. You can see one of the first battles starting to heat up just that touch bit. Paul Jenkins is among those drivers scrapping. He has Ron and Ken Hacker both wanting to make some moves behind.
Alex Van de Sande is also trying to make a move on both the Hackers. He goes down the inside, but that will actually backfire on him as Luis Gonzalez Nunez is battling. We're going to see a lot of this throughout the race, is a lot of just coming and going. People will pick a line, and if it doesn't work, they're going to go backwards instead of forwards because all of these cars are just so close together. But up as we watch on board with the SimSport News on board with Mike Rigney, he is battling with Caleb Benchy and Charles Teed. They've got a little bit of a gap. The top 6 have sort of broken away from this group here, and looks like they're fighting a little bit too much with themselves, and they might need to sort of reevaluate who's leading this group if they want to get back towards that lead pack there.
Barrett Rolfe, by the way, has come down under green, and his spotter has already left the paddock, so Barrett Rolfe may end up being in a drop situation as a result. Meanwhile, for the race lead, Tony Schowen has taken it. Newsom not giving up though. Stouffer and Anzotto all making it 2x2. Newsom nearly hit in the left rear tire, lifting his Stouffer. Anzotto still tries the high line as Schowen tries to defend the bottom can as Newsom dives underneath. Alexis Newsom makes it side by side down the backstretch.
What a move from Alexis Newsom. Crossed over Tony Schowen, and she is back to the front. She really wants to lead this race and stamp her authority on this. She does not want to have that passive approach that we've seen from her a couple of times this year. This is very reminiscent of her Milwaukee race, but Tony Schowen is also fighting back. It almost looks like, oh, caution.
And
That's
it's
Chris
another
Fowler.
incident. Yes, his second incident of the race, and that just came after moments after we had heard that the 3 and the 20 incident will be reviewed. Fowler is now done for the night. As you've seen, he's already pulled his car into the garage area. This is your second caution of the night coming already as, wow.
Yeah, just again, he gets loose on that bump on the bottom of turn 2. It's very tempting to go down there because it is the fast way around, but it really does upset your car if you get that just a little bit wrong. You can see it just steps out over that bump, and there's nowhere for that car. Who was that was involved?
Dean Mall.
Dean Mall. There was nowhere for Dean Mall to go there, unfortunately. Yeah, I feel for Dean Mall and Chris Fowler. This wasn't the race that he was hoping for. It was disastrous from the beginning, and this is going to put a serious dent in his championship hopes here.
Nick DeGroot was also within the vicinity for the caution flag. Our second of the night from Iowa Speedway, as strategy has become mixed big time now. How about 9th on back, staying 9th on forward, I should say, staying out, but 10th on back, electing to come down this time. Tony Schowen, Matt Taylor, Mike Rickney, Luis Gonzalez Nunez are yet to pit this race. Newsom was the first off of those who took service. So the strategy game is becoming massively mixed up, and this is the trend that popped up in the Retro Series race. Keep in mind, Andrew, is drivers wanted to guess the cautions and get the clean air in turn. If the gamble worked, they became the leaders.
Yeah, I really like this call from Alexis Newsom, George Gonzalo, Chris Stouffer, Robert Malechka. I think that this is definitely the right call. We've gotten 24 laps into the stint, so that's just over just over 1/3 of the stint in. So you know that the next caution, at least the top 4 are going to be coming in again on that caution because they just can't afford not to. So you're very likely at this point to cycle yourself to the front. And even if you don't cycle yourself front, just like I was talking about earlier, it's very likely that they'll be able to trap some of these guys 1 or 2 laps down. So I think that this is a very, very good call from the likes of Alexis Newsom, Christopher, George Anzaldo.
As mentioned, one of the drivers staying out here is Mike Rickney as we take a look at your Sim Experience driver profile for tonight. Rickney has 13 prior starts in this series, 4 top 10s in the season, just 1 top 5. His best finish came at Phoenix Raceway. And for Rickney, his luck has been off and on throughout the campaign. I've noticed, Andrew, he's had great pace. It's just he hasn't been in the best positioning to capitalize on said speed throughout the season.
Yeah, this is the type of race that Rigney really enjoys. It's a little bit strategic. He gets out there, he does a little bit different things, but then he also has that speed to back it up, as you mentioned. And this has really given him the opportunity to sort of put himself near the front of this field here. So I think that, as you mentioned, this is one of those opportunities for him to really have that track position and show us what he can do out there. He does have a win in the IndyCar series for the Lionheart series here. Not at Iowa, I believe it was at Pocono that he won. So we definitely know that he has the speed to win. It's just having that positioning, having the strategy right, and this is an interesting call from him going forward in this race.
Keep in mind his average finish 17.8 entering tonight. Amongst his 13 starts, 6 DNFs. Some of the most recent ones, New Hampshire, Indianapolis, Atlanta, Homestead, a lot of big hitters amongst that group. But we're still under caution as we wait for the lights to go out on top of the iRacing pace car. They are off this time, so In the end, after everything is sorted out, several of the drivers who came down the first caution elected to top off the second time around. Those drivers were Ryman, Godso, Houston, and Musselman. Joe Branch is the only driver who has elected to stay out from that first pit cycle. Tony Schowen, Matt Taylor, Mike Rigney, Luis Gonzalez Nunez are 1 through 4 as the only drivers yet to pit at all. Alexis Newsom in turn will restart 6th with Enzotto, Stouffer, Malechka to the 3rd, and Benchy inside the top 10. And I will say for Caleb, it's been an impressive start to his evening. Started as one of the quickest drivers in qualifying, still has been able to hold on to a top 10 positioning early. Have to see how this restart fares out. Coming to 178 laps to go to start lap 28 of tonight's action from Iowa Speedway. His car is off, waits to green flag this time. Tony Schowen with a decent launch. The question is, can he break away, especially with the drivers on fresher tires right in the heart of the pack? For side-by-side fighting between Branch and Nunez. Nunez has already lost the bottom. Alexis Newsom trying to take advantage. How does Newsom play this now in terms of the aggression levels? As Nunez tries to take the second, nearly up to the 3rd line. As it becomes side-by-side, nearly 3 wide behind him.
Yeah, you really saw that momentum there. Newsom tried to take advantage of the speed that she had and go up to the bottom. But that top lane really, with that momentum, shuffled her back just a little bit. That aggression did not pay off for her there. But you're seeing the likes of Georgia Anzaldo and Chris Stouffer. These fresh tires are definitely benefiting them as they're sort of taking it to the cars directly in front of them. Meanwhile, up front, we have sort of a 3-car breakaway with Tony Schowen, Matt Taylor, and Mike Rigney. As these cars, Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Joe Branch are sort of the cork in the bottle, holding up all the cars on fresh tires right now, Justin.
That's all as Matt Taylor has taken the race lead, and they're going back and forth with a slide job battle, and that's going to allow everyone to reel back in to the top 3 breakaway. Schowen's back to the point with a slide job through 1 and 2. Matt Taylor now trying to regroup, carrying a lot of that speed from the Retro Series race where he went on a charge, remember, Andrew. He was as far back as the mid-teens in that race, eventually came away with a strong finishing position, nearly coming away with a race victory. Of course, that race was won in part by the magical fuel-saving tree as Joe Branch joins the fight for second.
Yeah, it looks like Matt Taylor is now that we're starting to get back into the swing of this stint. His tires are starting to go off just a little bit because he is on those older tires right now, and you're looking at the likes of Joe Branch. He's not necessarily one that is known for coming towards the front of the race this early in the race, but when he has a tire advantage like this, he's really able to take advantage of it, and he's one that I would look forward to just work that strategy. He's always thinking about strategy. I know from personal experience working with him during the race that he's thinking about that strategy even now, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do being this far up in the race this early.
Keep in mind, Joe Branch, just a 10-lap difference on his tires compared to Tony Schowen and company. Alexis Newsom is still among the top drivers on those who pit the last caution. The thing is, Chris Stouffer, the car right in front, is that net advantage leader, to the point where Stouffer is diving underneath Mike Rigney for 4th position. Newsom having a bit of chaos right underneath with Nunez and company. Finally gets single file. Wow, the send comes from Chris Stouffer to still try and get along side by side, nearly for 3rd spot as Matt Taylor shuts the door.
Yeah, the issue for Newsom and Rigney right now is that, or Newsom especially, is that Rigney and Taylor are very much staying on that outside line, and she's just not able to get that momentum. Stouffer keeps on going down because he's very impatient, and he wants to get to the front and make use of those fresh tires that he has. Newsom is being a little bit more patient here, and she's just staying in line, trying to work that outside line, not falling into the trap of sort of taking that inside line and potentially falling back because you check up your momentum. So it'll be interesting to see over the long run whether it's Newsom or Stouffer here that really gets to the front first.
That's why they're fighting so hard. You see that on the side of your screen with the stint lanes, with that even number of 17 laps compared to those who are already approaching 41, 42 laps or so this time by. But it's Schowen still holding on to the point. Joe Branch has settled in. A huge checkup from Taylor. That's going to help Stouffer. Not able to clear on by Foley as Rickney still keeps up the fight in all this. The top 16 is starting to see things split apart a little bit. There is a separation from 14th to 15th of more than a second. Make it 2 seconds already on track.
Yeah, Nick DeGroot and Jeff Hassong have just not been cooperating very well, and they've sort of been the cork in the bottle of that big second group. And it's allowed the likes of Caleb Benchy and Alex Van de Sant to just sort of get away from them. That whole first group now is very comfortably in front of this second group. As we watch the battle for ninth here, Robert Malecha, Ken Hacker, Charles Teague, and Paul Jenkins, and even back towards the likes of Chris Benchy and Alex Van de Sant. There's a lot of people doing a lot of pretty sketchy things right now. As we see Robert Malecha actually going backwards. Did he hit the wall coming off of 3 there? Or 4 there? Did I see that right?
I don't think he hit the wall. He just all of a sudden dropped a ton of speed down the middle of the straightaway. He had a bit of a bobble coming off of turn 4 and was in the midst of 180 miles an hour, then immediately just lifted off.
Very strange that because he's dropping back even behind Alex Van de Sant. As we go back up towards the front of this battle, Chris Stouffer and Alexis Newsom are still side by side here. Oh, and Stouffer gets in the back of Newsom.
Caution is out again. Several cars slam into the wall. Here comes the second pack. And it looks like they'll get by safely as Stouffer and Ken Hacker are stopped along the top of the racetrack and now putting their cars on the tow truck. So let's take a look at the RaceSpot TV replay. And with how aggressive they were fighting, you had to feel something was going to happen. And in that case, it is a massive one.
Yeah, it looks like Stouffer just tried to fall back in line behind Alexis Newsom, but at the same time, Alexis Newsom had to check up because the cars in front of her were letting off for the corner. So it was just 2 cars coming into one there, and then Ken Hacker nowhere to go. Fortunately, it looks like Alexis Newsom might have actually escaped this almost unscathed, if I'm looking at her correctly. She might have some limited damage from the impact with Ken Hacker, but oh yeah, she does have a side pod damage.
That's a ton.
We'll have to see whether that gets repaired. I'm not sure what will happen with this old damage model that the DW12 is on. But yeah, that's just one of those unfortunate things that can happen. It was that outside line checked up as it came into the corner, just as Chris Stouffer tried to slot in behind, and it was just 2 cars into one there.
So majority of the field, as to be expected here, coming in, because this is one of those markers around this point. Drivers were expected to go as long if it stayed green to 80 or 58-59 laps, I should say. Most of the drivers taking that chance. The only drivers who don't: Jenkins, Van de Sant, Ryman, Godso, Houston, Musselman. Tony Schowen the first off the pit lane. And I was talking a little bit about the gambles before. If you stay out and you get the timely caution, you get shuffled amongst the leaders. Guess who is that one who gets shuffled amongst the leaders now? Joe Branch. It just paid off for him in a big way, Andrew. One of the best positions he's been in all season as a result of that.
Absolutely. This was exactly what Joe Branch and Tony Schowen wanted. It allowed them to come in, take their fuel, and now they're sort of in that strategic advantage portion compared to the cars that stayed out. It really has opened up the strategy a lot for them going forward. They're right in the right window as well to make it on one more stop. So some of these guys who stayed out, they're taking a big gamble here that they're going to find some cautions in the right spot. I'm not quite sure that this is the right call for some of these guys. But if you're the likes of Sam Ryman, you might as well take this shot here. You weren't near the front before, so now that you are at the front, let's see what can happen and if you can take advantage of it.
Keep in mind, Samuel Ryman actually made one of his first starts of the season at Pocono, and quietly, mind you, Andrew, came away with the top 10 in that race while saving a lot in terms of strategy. So it was an intriguing finish for him. We'll have to see how things fare out. As to be expected, a majority of the drivers who rolled the dice here coming in, including Ryman, Godso, Houston, Musselman, like last caution. But Paul Jenkins and Alexander Van de Sant saying, we'll try this. Try and see if they can get the timely caution they are looking for, as the lights are still on top of the iRacing pace car.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a roll of the dice for Paul Jenkins and Alex Van de Sant. Van de Sant is pretty good at running these weird strategy plays that somehow they sort of turn out for him. He's turned that into successful runs at a number of races. Meanwhile, I'm also looking at pit road. Alexis Newsom is back down on pit road as well. She does still have a fair bit of damage on her left side. So obviously there's some more optional repairs that she's looking to get done here. It is a very short lap, even under caution. So oftentimes you see drivers coming down multiple times, but it does look like any hope of winning this race is probably done for our pole sitter and early race leader.
And this has just been the epitome of Newsom's past few weeks. Because for Alexis Newsom, it's been amongst the past 5 races. 22nd, 20th, 4th, 18th, 3rd. At Indy, it was bad luck and pit mistakes. It was Chicagoland, where she made a mistake every single pit entry of that race and or had to take damage repair. At Pocono, a lengthy stop and some mistakes on pit road, and then a crash. And of course, being involved in some of the factors of a parachute that compressed that battle for the race lead, with some of the drivers trying to save off the back end of Newsom. But either way, it's been not the prettiest past couple weeks for Newsom, and a lot of the past races have in turn turned into drops after such a powerful start.
Yeah, it was a strong start, but we're actually going back to green right here, Justin, I believe.
Here we go. Paul Jenkins leads the field to green, and we'll see how this fares out for him and Alexander Van de Sant. Tony Schowen, couple car lengths back, single file amongst the top 10 cars off the jump. Newsom is at the back of the line. Keep in mind in 22nd, we'll keep an eye on that in terms of how her pace fares out with that side pod damage. Now the interesting mark again is going to be how this pack compresses, because contrary to how the Retro Series went, where clean air was king, it's been to where there's been a lot of attempts to pass, especially early on in this track.
Yeah, the one nice thing about the DW12 is that they do have that much higher downforce short oval package compared to the IR18. And I think you're seeing a lot of the benefit of that here today is that people are able to race side by side with this car at this track. And it's a lot of fun to watch, but there's also a lot of chaos that's going on out on the track as well for these drivers. As we see, Tony Schowen is wasting no time in getting by Alex Van de Sant and going for the lead with Paul Jenkins here.
For the race lead, Tony Schowen quickly trying to peel it away from Jenkins. Jenkins not making it easy. For 1 second between 4th and 5th position already. That's how far back they've dropped with this scrapping. Zalwell Joe Branch now tries to follow his teammate underneath. Trying to take away 2nd position. Gets 2nd at the stripe. Isn't fully clear yet. And that has allowed everyone to come back in that 1 second.
Yeah, Joe Branch and Tony Schowen clearly want to lead here. They want to sort of control the race with the Adrenaline Motorsports cars 1-2 now. It's a little bit of a departure from what I normally see from Joe Branch being up this far, but I think he's really liking it and he's really taking advantage of it. That being said, George Anzaldo has gotten himself to the front of this second pack here. They're just outside of draft range right now. It'll be interesting to see whether Anzaldo and Nunez can work together to get back towards the front, or whether they'll start fighting again and they'll be dropped entirely.
Newsom has now dropped to the apron. Meanwhile, that's the car that they're zipping by now in that bottom of the racetrack, so Newsom is now off the lead lap as a result of that damage. See the swapping still. Nunez defending hard to the bottom through 1 and 2. Here comes George Anzaldo with a minus 273 on board. The swap draft right on back. And one of the best runs for Anzaldo in the season so far. Needs to close up 7 car lengths, though, to get back up to the top 4's pack.
Really solid drive from George Anzaldo here today. That being said, Luis Gonzalez Nunez gets very close to the back of George Anzaldo coming off of 2 as George slid up there just a little bit. But yeah, very, very impressive showing from George Anzaldo. He's doing a great job of cooperating with Luis Gonzalez Nunez here and sort of swap drafting. George has always been sort of one that tends to fight maybe a little bit more than is best for him in terms of his overall results. So watching him fight, well, not necessarily fight, but work with Luis Gonzalez Nunez here, I think that this is a really good development in George's driving here, and this will serve him well towards the end of the race if he can just pull that little bit farther back up and really draft back up to the back of this leading four here.
The lap times are showing they are gaining a little bit. And Zotto was a 17 flat last time, the leader 17.3, so they are closing, especially now in the past 2 laps. Now they're within the major drafting distance. Well, Benchie has seen the opportunity to now pounce now that they've closed out fully the outside of Charles Teed as well. That's going on for 9th position. Move Benchie up that position as they drive by Newsom once more. But the gap has now progressed and closed up fully. Nunez just had to check up massively right behind Van de Sant. Now wants to make the moves and brings George and Zotto with him.
Yeah, I was going to say that they had started to sort of sort themselves out and start falling in line a little bit. And then Nunez and Anzaldo just didn't want to stop at closing up to the leading four. They want to be a part of the leading four. As we see, Luis Gonzalez Nunez has actually gone all the way up to P3 now and is fighting with Joe Branch to take over that 2nd position. Luis Gonzalez Nunez has really got that bottom hooked up here, Justin, and he's actually going for the lead here.
Give Luis Gonzalez Nunez the lead, and this has been a 2021 to forget for Nunez. Up and down throughout many of his starts across the Lionheart competition, he now leads in the Speedway series. And he's actually pulling away from this pack. He's the fastest car on the track.
Yeah, Luis Gonzalez Nunez has really come into his own here at Iowa Speedway. This might be the type of track that he's sort of been missing and been looking for, because he is doing a great job he did a nice job of getting cleanly through that field, and he's now doing a nice job right at that front. It'll be interesting to see if the Adrenaline Motorsports teammates of Tony Schauman and Joe Branch have a response for him once they get back into a rhythm, or whether they're just content to let him lead here.
He's up 17 positions from the drop of the green flag. One of the few drivers who have been able to make their way through the field like that today. And to emphasize the importance with Nunez and how this race has fared out with him. No lead laps since Twin Rainbow Motegi for him in this series. 70 and Epson Nunez is around! The commentator's curse strikes for the race leader!
Disaster for Luis Nunez. I think it's another instance of just hitting that bump. It's so easy to be aggressive, but I think he just hit that bump and it sent him around coming off of turn 2.
We'll take a quick break and take a look at what happened right after this. You're watching RaceBot TV and ESTV for coverage of the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by the DMLC Racing Channel.
Wreck avoidances.
Stay low. Ease high, stay low.
Daring passes.
Oh, you're going to get it.
Silly jumps.
Oh my god, a drive-through.
The thrill of victory.
They're against the wall. Good win, Mark. Stay low.
And the occasional mishap.
My sim crashed.
This is the DMLC Racing Channel.
Welcome back to RaceBot TV and ESTV's coverage of the Lionheart Speedway Series for the Graphics Esports 175 at Iowa, presented by Midwest Simulations. Justin Prince and Drew Kinsella with you with our June Kankipani in the producer's seat. And the last caution flag is the epitome of Luis Gonzalez Nunez's season. A spin from the race lead for Gonzalez Nunez, another victim of the bumps out of 2.
Yeah, Justin, it's really, really unfortunate. There's this tunnel that comes in underneath to get into the infield, and it creates this bump. And as you can see right here, he hits the bump, and it just starts to slide, and it's so hard to catch it at that point. He does manage to expertly keep it off the wall there, and it does look like he's avoided taking major damage there. He might have gotten a little front wing damage, and Tony Schowen might have also gotten a little bit of front wing damage there. But it looks like both Schowen and Nunez did escape the majority of the damage there, which was very, very lucky. But it's one of those things that Iowa, you are pushing so hard to especially as the leader, to stay down there and stay close to the bottom and be as fast as possible. But then you run that risk of hitting that bump just a little bit wrong, and once you start sliding, it's very, very difficult to save it.
Also of note, under this caution as well, there was a massive checkup from Nunez and was ran into the back end of by Alexis Newsom to add even more damage to the factory back machine. This is all while just one driver has stayed out under the caution period for this restart this time. Dakota DeMade, first led laps in this series. Your pressure is now on. This is now where the rookie stripes are now tested here for the race first driver.
Yeah, this will be trial by file for Dakota DeMade as we come back to green here, Justin.
iRacing pace car coming off this time by everybody else has come down to pit. 127 laps to go. Green flag is out. We're back on our way. And up with a decent start to this restart here at Iowa Speedway. We'll see how things fare out in regards to that strategy for the 82 machine. But as mentioned, everybody else pit. Van de Sande and Jenkins had their strategy work out fairly well for the track position here at this racetrack. As we take a look at Matt Taylor fighting hard, that's Enzodo and Benchy right behind.
Pretty well-behaved restart so far from most of the field. I think they're starting to learn that maybe staying in line and picking their battles is the right way to go, as we do see George Enzodo looking to the inside of Matt Taylor through turns 1 and 2, and he makes that pass happen. That battle, though, has allowed that the top 5 has broken away slightly from this pack of 4 or 5 cars here. As we see a lot more. Go ahead, Justin.
And a lot of big battling indeed for 6th position. Was just going to say, how about a 10th lost at least last time by? They're doing a full second behind the top 5 grouping as a result. Now, it's worth noting as well that the championship standings are likely going to take some major hits today, to say the very least. We'll have to see how things fare out, especially once the drops are factored in. Here is the live point standings, and that is a major swing if that sticks the way it's at based on those numbers.
Absolutely. Tony Schowen somehow finds his way all the way up to the front of this fight for the championship. But look at how close it becomes between Tony Schowen, Matt Taylor, and Barrett Rolfe. Rolfe obviously is out of this race and is going to score a very low amount of points. But it really has compressed the top 3 in this championship if it continues this way.
Again, it's worth noting there are drop weeks as well to be associated with the standings, so that will also take into account after those respective totals as well. So a lot of potential shuffling could come into play as a result. Again, those do not include the drop. Factors in to the overall point standings. It's worth noting as well, Benchy has moved his way up to 6th position, is leading the second pack. It's all fared out. Maine still leading as the Pied Piper though, and it looks like everyone's content to just ride right behind the 82 machine for now.
Yeah, I think that what we're seeing here is that they know that DeMade is going to have to come into the pits at some point soon. So there's no point in really fighting just too much with them. But what I do want to point out is just like Joe Branch took advantage of one of those cautions, look at 4th and 5th. Paul Jenkins and Alex Van de Sant have taken advantage of this latest caution, and they are in prime position here for setting up for this second half of this race here, Justin. They've really worked the strategy well, and they're doing a great job and have great track position going forward.
That grouping right behind is still shuffling as well, as you see 29 and the 6 still scrapping a little bit. Benchy having to take defensive actions. Entering turn 3, Rigney, Taylor, Malechka the third to group. Amongst those in the train, plus 12. Keep in mind for the group after being involved in one of the earlier incidents in the race, as Enzotto tries to make the dive. And we've seen this earlier before work out decently. The swap draft can play out if you do it right, and now it looks like they're finally in sync for it.
Yeah, swap drafting, it's tough here at Iowa because the straightaways are so short, but if you get the timing right, it really does benefit you. So George Anzaldo has actually been doing a really good job here today, and I really got a compliment on this for getting that swap draft going. And he every time that it seems like that this second pack has gotten sort of tripped over themselves and let the leading pack get away, he's gone straight to the front of this pack, and he started doing that swap drafting thing and really started to drag this pack back up towards the leaders.
It's going to be intriguing how this all plays out. And we have now been informed, you may have noticed a couple of the championship competitors to Andrew were rolling on the apron, Newsom and Rolf. They have now been instructed, we've been told by race control, that they are only to circulate during the yellow flags due to them being that far off the pace. So in turn, that takes away their chances to try and leapfrog one another with that cat and mouse game. They're separated by 55 laps in terms of their lap margin. Still looking for the minus 273 on board. George Anzaldo now still leading that 6th place grouping. Needs to close up 6 car lengths, regain the draft to Paul Jenkins and get to the rear wing.
Yeah, that circulating under caution will definitely hurt them, but at the same time, it also proves just how valuable every point is in this series. The racing is so tight, the championship is so tight that the likes of Bear Rolf and Alexis Newsom, they realize that, and they're looking to get every point they can. So even if they just circulate under caution, I expect them to do that and try to get whatever positions they can throughout the rest of this race. As we see, Matt Taylor gets very close to George Anzaldo there, Justin.
That lost them nearly a full second or so. That's the example of how not to time that up, let's put it that way, with how razor thin that margin gone.
Yeah, that was a slide job more than a cooperation, and it doesn't look like George Anzaldo really appreciated that much, because he's not cooperating very much with Matt Taylor at this point.
The bad luck for Luis Gonzalez Nunez we're hearing has continued, by the way. You may have noticed a moment ago, he is now in the garage area. He was running on his own off the pace after his several incidents. A few laps ago, he had spun on his own down the back straightaway into the inside wall, significantly damaged the front and rear wing, sheared both of them off, going from the race lead to the garage area likely as a result. For Luis Gonzalez Nunez, not the night he was looking for in what has been a nightmare of 2021. The gap between 5th and 6th still 1.1 seconds. Meanwhile, Maid is now reaching his 54th lap this time as we look aboard. SimSport News onboard camera for Mike Rigney.
Yeah, and you can see that Mike has started to move that line just up the track just that little bit. There's fewer and fewer cars as we see George Anzaldo tried that bottom line just to get a little bit of clean air on his nose, but there are fewer and fewer cars sort of venturing down, and it seems like that top line is really starting to come into play, as we see Alex Van de Sant tried to make the bottom line work, didn't work out, and now Paul Jenkins has gotten back up into that 4th place position there.
I want to swap around a little bit. That lost him a touch bit of ground by a couple car lengths. Not too much, though. Still have a 1-second cushion to the scrapping. That continues to be a wrestling match for 6th on behind. The gap has built up for 14th and 15th as well on track. That's nearly up to 2 seconds. Alex Guyon losing that touch, losing a 10th per lap. But as mentioned, the 82 who's leading the field has to come down to pit pretty soon. And this is the massive gamble that we talked about for some of the drivers who want to get track position. For Dakota, he needs a caution now for this to work out in any way, shape, or form for the rookie.
He's in desperate need of a caution in the worst possible way. It's going to put him at least 1, if not 2 laps down here. He is going to have a nice tire advantage, about a half a run's worth of tire advantage, but at the same time, it potentially, with how we've seen this race go so far, with a caution coming out every 30 to 40 laps, this puts him right in that danger zone of getting trapped, not just 1, but maybe even 2 laps down here, Justin.
Remember, just 3 laps recorded at Pocono in his first career start. And we talked about how race burst fares out as it crashes! The second leader to crash from the point!
That was a bizarre crash. I'm not sure what happened there. It almost looked like he was trying to get to pit lane, but he overshot it, to be quite honest. He just dove right down, and it started rotating on him very, very early on. So that was a very bizarre incident.
Oh my word. I'm not sure what to think either. That is absolutely stunning. He was at the edge of his pit window, 61 laps. Yeah, he started drifting for the top, entering 3.
Yeah, I'm a little bit speechless, Justin. I think that, yeah, he just turned in a little bit too hard, and it started drifting right from the very beginning. The rear end of these cars get very light as the fuel burns off. So if he was right at the edge of his fuel window, it could just be that maybe his rear tires gave up. But I think we need to stop talking about the leader so often, because we are definitely invoking the commentator's curse in spades here tonight.
I mean, it's gone from commentator's curse to the leader's curse. That can come into play at some races. Tony Schowen wins the race off the pit road, by the way, over Branch, Jenkins, Van de Sant, and Benchy. But it's Houston, Musselman, and Godso who stay out. I'm expecting the 66, 54, and 2 likely to come down based on their pattern, so in turn, it's still a tight race. This is a one-stopper now to get to the end for everybody who just came down to the pit lane.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, particularly by Matt Houston staying out here. AJ Musselman and Gary Godso really had nothing to lose by invoking a strategy like that, but Houston was fairly far up the field, if I recall correctly. So it's a very strange strategy, particularly how we've seen the old tires. The rear seems to definitely go away a little bit for the leader. So we'll see how this call plays out. But if it were me, I would have done exactly what the rest of the field did with Tony and Joe and all of those guys. So I think that they'll be just fine on fuel from here. Definitely an interesting call.
And it looks like at least 2 of the 3 who stayed out, as to be expected, coming down. We'll see if AJ Musselman peels off later through turn 4, if he elects to roll the dice, and oh boy, we're having another one try it. So he's trying something different. He's peeled off during the 3rd pace lap every time he's done this prior to this. So he's breaking the trend with the HyperX on board.
Yeah, now this I don't mind as much, because AJ Musselman has been near the back of the field this entire time. So this at least presents him with the opportunity to get some track position, and if a yellow comes out at the right time, this at least makes sense from that standpoint from him. So I don't mind this as much from AJ Musselman as I do. Like, I'm not entirely certain what Matt Houston gained from staying out there, because he's now down in, I think, 18th position. So all it did was cycle him to the back of the field. But at least this one presents an opportunity for AJ Musselman to maybe have a caution fall at the right point in time, and he can take advantage of that.
And here's the thing to consider, too. He extends this. He's still in a spot where he would only need one more pit stop either way. It's just he'd have to go the full length of the tank if it goes green. And then it needs to go green to the point where everyone else pits with about 30 laps to go. So it can work out in a couple different ways. So I'm curious how this plays out. Again, plus 23 for AJ Musselman. And if my memory serves right, he's tried this strategy before at this track in the past in the Retro Series.
Yeah, it definitely can potentially work, but a lot of things have to go really right for him. He can't afford to have a caution at the wrong point in time. He's got to pit at exactly the right time, get the right amount of mileage, and he needs to make sure that the cars behind him don't just swarm him on this restart with those fresh tires that they have.
So right now we have 20 cars circulating on track. Nunez, multiple laps down with damage to main, currently still getting repairs done after his incident. But it's AJ Musselman who now leads with 91 to go this time. Green flags back up. We're racing once more from Iowa. Clean start for everyone once more in through turns 1 and 2, but near contact in that entry. Jenkins and Van de Sande going wing to wing entering that entry.
Very close racing from Van de Sande and Jenkins, but Van de Sande has now dropped back just a little bit off the back of Jenkins. I think just giving him a little bit of a wider berth through this next corner. And they have Caleb Benchy, who's has been quietly doing a very good job all race, I must say, Justin. He's been in and around that top 10 this entire time. Very impressive for the race first driver here.
And keep in mind, race first has been quick, especially in the past month or so, for several other drivers. As you see the fighting go on for third position, Paul Jenkins wants to break up the Adrenaline Motorsports teammates, and Benchy wants to come with. Benchy underneath the 97 clears them as they both complete their passes.
Very close stuff here at the front of the field, and we have battles all throughout the field. In fact, his Mike Rigney and George Anzaldo just a little bit further back. They've been going 2 and 3 wide as they tried to work their way up through this field. Again, that break has sort of happened between that top 6 and George Anzaldo and Mike Rigney. It'll be interesting to see as this race goes on if George starts working with him again, or whether they start saying, hey, this race is starting to get on and I can't let you keep leapfrogging me.
Is that a concern, though, with this being the consistent point around that mark? As we take a look at what's going on for second on 4.
Well, if these drivers keep on going too wide up in front of them, I don't think that they have to be too concerned about these guys escaping at all. It's if these guys in front start getting single file and really start turning in the lap times, that's when Rigney and Anzaldo really have to start worrying and start cooperating more. Right now, though, I think it's a matter of just putting in some laps here for some of these guys. There's been some incidents, especially with cars being a little bit too aggressive, being on that low line, being a little too aggressive into corner entry, and then especially over that bump in turn 2 that we've seen. So maybe driving a little bit conservatively here is sort of on the cards for some of these drivers who are left in this race. Just trying to position themselves well, but at the same time preserving their cars.
The solo AJ Musselman continues to hold on to the lead. Joe Branch remaining patient, lifting, entering the corners. And Soto has also been shuffled out by Rigney and Taylor just behind. So these drivers remain patient until now. Joe Branch wants the lead. He's had enough of the patience game. He dives underneath, move Joe Branch to the race lead.
Decisive move there from Joe Branch. He definitely wants to lead right now. He knows what the strategy is for him, and that means going as fast as he can for the rest of this race. He's doing a good job staying off of that bump, you'll notice through there, Justin. He's operating sort of a little bit off that bottom lane as we see that Mike Rigney and George Anzaldo are still mixing it up in the back here. They have Matt Taylor and Robert Malechka right around there as well. Taylor has done a good job of getting through this field and navigating this traffic as well. But these guys are starting to drop off just a little bit from Alex Van de Sant in that 6th place.
Van de Sant has been able to take advantage of all the shuffling once more as, again, this looks like rush hour traffic on the highway just about with how these drivers swap. Okay, you go. No, you go. Now I'm going to go. Now I'm going to saw off your front wing. I'm going to respond back by drafting you. It seems like that chess match comes into play with these drivers trying to sort themselves out. They're barely holding on to that 1 second interval, keep in mind. That's so critical to that top 6 as well.
Yeah, the only problem is that your competitors in this virtual world can't see you shaking your fist out the side of your car as you go by. Sometimes you wish you could, especially when you get your nose chopped off like Malechka did for Mike Rigney there. As we see, it looks like George Anzaldo and Robert Malechka are starting to do a little bit of swapping now. Now, it's interesting, Malechka has had a very quiet race, I must say, Justin. He did start up near the front, but he's never really been a part of that front group. He's always been part of this sort of teetering on the edge of the top 10, so it'd be interesting to see if he's been saving his car just a little bit. And now that the race has started to come on, it looks like he's interested in really starting to press just that little bit more.
They are now closing back up at a rapid rate now, in part because they're fighting side by side for the 5th position as well. Zed and Benchy side by side. That's going to allow Anzaldo for a hard charge to close up. The 97 gets side by side with the Aerolex machine of Paul Jenkins as well. Keep in mind, AJ Musselman has to pit soon as there's a bit of contact. Tire-to-tire rubbish there. They're able to hold on for the time being for 4th.
Really close stuff from Alex Van de Sant and Paul Jenkins there. It's one of those things where as the tires wear off on the run, you start to drift up just that little bit more and more as you see George Anzaldo has now entered the fray here right behind Caleb Benchy. He has bridged that gap, and it is now no longer a front 6. It is a front 13 or 14 cars now, all in one pack. As this is about to get a little bit spicy, I think, here, Justin, as some of these cars who have had the momentum are trying to get through this field now.
The interesting mark is, how do you pit if you're AJ Musselman? There's not a lot of space to peel off the racetrack right now. Let's put it that way. Near contact for 3rd. Tony Shawa nearly hit from behind by Van de Sant. That's why Jenkins now dives underneath as a result for 4th.
Yeah, that... as to the pitting, this is where the communication becomes so key. One of the nice things about virtual racing and iRacing is that you can communicate with the drivers around you and let them know your intentions. Lionheart has further made a decree that you have to pit off of turn 3 here, so it does make for a little bit of a less chaotic pit entry, but it still can be fairly hair-raising at times, especially trying to get around the apron and get down to the pit lane speed. So it'll be very interesting. They are going 3 wide all over the place in the back here, though, Justin. And these guys, they were calm for a little bit, but they're no longer calm anymore.
I mean, Paul Jenkins had a hair-raising moment for 3 wide. That's why he's now shuffled back to 8th position, as he basically got drop-kicked down the pylon as a result of that move. Here comes the pit signal. AJ Musselman dives quickly underneath the O-line of the apron. Nice and safe, no contact. And now, how does everyone else fare out is the big question. 65 laps to go. The rest of the drivers can still go for about another 30 laps before they have to pit for the final time for gas.
Yeah, it's going to be... That's a little bit earlier than I wanted to see from AJ Musselman, to be quite honest. It's going to be a stretch for him to make it here. We talked about maybe this would work out if he would be able to actually get into the fuel window. This is right on the edge of that fuel window. It's going to be a stretch for him to go fully to the end here if this goes green. and he needs it to go green if he has any hope of winning this race. So very interesting call to come in this early.
See how it works out for the 57 machine. He did lose 2 laps as well as a result of that pit stop, so he needs this race to go green. This is one of the longest runs of the race. Each of the previous longest runs were broken up by the leader crashing. Your contact behind this battle we're seeing on screen, by the way. Your slide job between Taylor and Rigney. This now sees Joe Branch as the Pied Piper meanwhile. And this is what we were kind of possibly expecting. The middle line to be that preferred line, and the clean air is helping, but that dirty air about to be fed from Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who is within 15 car lengths of the leaders now.
Yeah, Joe and Tony are both working that middle lane, and it's not leaving a lot of opportunity for people to make up positions. Alex Van de Sant is really racy on the back of Tony Schowen right now, and so is Caleb Benchy, but they don't really have anywhere to go. I think it'll be interesting to see, Justin,
caution.
whether... Oh, caution comes out. Big wreck.
And AJ Musselman's strategy has gone bust as they are wrecking all over down the back stretch as well. What in the world?
I believe, was that Ron Hacker was a part of that?
Take a look at the race.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Nunez was the car in front of all this. And there's his spin at the top of the racetrack. Then as they pass by, wow. Nunez got hit by Taylor and Jenkins, and everyone crashes in the middle of the top 10.
Yeah, so that was Matt Taylor, that was Alex Gouillon, Paul Jenkins. Taylor has a fairly significant amount of damage. That's going to be disastrous for his championship hopes as well. Yeah. So I hate to pile on Luis Gonzalez Nunez's bad race that has already happened here, but when you're a lap car and you're going that much slower than everyone else, you really need to be conscious of not spinning in front of the pack like that. And it just seemed like, I don't know, I'm not sure if that was really necessary, to be quite honest.
Race control has already informed Nunez he is parked for the night. That is his third incident of the race. Every leader has pit except for the 2 in the 66. Gotso and Houston have come down every third lap as talked about. But there is a bit of mixture on how this is played out for the pit stop deltas. A very short stop for Alexander Van de Sant there, Andrew. We're inside the fuel window, but he took about a half a second quicker stop than everybody else.
Yeah, very interesting from Van de Sant. Do you know if he took tires, Justin, or whether that was just fuel? It could be that he just had been able to save enough fuel and he was lined up properly in his box that he was able to get that half second. But either way, it's really put him in a very good position here. He's able to leapfrog both of the Adrenaline Motorsports teammates, and he's going to shake out probably in the lead of the race once Gary Godso and Matt Houston come down pit road here, as we expect them to do on their third or second or third time around the track here.
Can confirm he did go on the jacks, by the way, to answer that question. So, for Van de Sant, looking like he's in a great situation. AJ Musselman now has to take a wave. He is expected to stay out, but the problem is, for AJ, he is one lap down. Even with this wave, he needs a lot to go his way, let's put it that way, for the 54 machine. So there goes the 2 in the 66 coming in this time. It's Van de Sant, Branch, Schowen, Benchy, and Zodo, Molechka III, Rigney, Teed. Amongst your top drivers, we're down to 17 cars under full power circulating. Alexis Newsom is currently trying to make up laps on the apron as well. So this race could get pretty crazy, if we can even get more crazier than this. Absolutely,
Justin, because this is go time for a lot of these drivers, especially the drivers sort of in the back half of the top 10 here. If you've been sort of riding around, maybe saving your stuff, maybe trying to survive and avoid any wrecks, this is the time where everyone is going to say, this is go time. we need to get to the front. So this is going to get crazy here as we come down. I think we have one more lap to go under caution here.
Yep.
So if you're Joe Branch and Tony Schowen, you're looking to reassert yourself 1-2 at the front and sort of control it as Adrenaline Motorsports. Van de Sant, he's going to be trying to prevent them from doing that at all costs. And then if you're in the back half of the top 10, again, it's go time. So this is going to be a heck of a finish here for these last 55 laps.
So the damage report amongst those with significant issues with the caution flag period here this time: Paul Jenkins, Ron Hacker, Matt Taylor, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, several more all getting collected. Alex Guyon had 24 seconds repairs under caution. Matt Houston had a near 15-second stop as well during this circulation. 16 cars in the lead lap. Lights are out on top of the iRacing pace car. And remember, it was at Kentucky where lightning struck for Alexander Van de Sant, was able to stretch the fuel tank to 45 laps twice to be able to make it on fumes to the stripe to win that race. Can he hold on here at Iowa for this one? We'll have to see how things turn out here. 53 to go this time. Green flag is out. We're back underway. Nice clean launch once more for the drivers. They stay single file amongst the 16 cars on the lead lap. But Joe Branch trying to eat up that gap and quickly. Take a look at the battle going on from behind. You see this is from Van de Sant's viewpoint. Joe Branch within a car length and a half. Here comes Tony Schowen, though, to battle with his own teammate for second.
Side by side from the Adrenaline Motorsports teammates, but it's Alex Van de Sant who continues to lead. Tony Schowen is now looking to the inside. Will it be Tony Schowen coming back to the front as George Hanzaldo looks to take advantage as well?
So a new race leader once more. It's Tony Schowen. He's been a contender all season, but George Hanzaldo looks to break up the party. His best run all year. Hanzaldo with the previous best of 9th will have to wait as Matt Taylor crashes for the caution. We're back in our own once more, and one of the final drivers on the lead lap has significant suspension damage. Had that damage reported right before this triggers the caution.
Yeah, you can see that from the last incident, he just couldn't get it all fixed, and it looks like he just had some rear suspension damage that was not letting him go through the corners very well, and he just loses it all on his own through turn 1. Backs it in the wall, and I think that's going to be day done for Matt Taylor.
Not the night Taylor was looking for after performing so well in the Retro Series event here. That's your 7th caution of the night, by the way. That will allow everyone to check back up once more under caution. So at this point, how do you see this breaking on down as, what's this? Oh, it's Alexander Van de Sant playing games.
Just some games under caution. Got to keep entertained somehow there, Justin.
I mean, the tempting part would have been if anyone tried to follow him and then see if anyone got tricked underneath, but with everyone good on fuel, that is to be expected. By the way, the previous caution totals when it comes to the Dallara DW12 here at Iowa in IndyCar action, previous high was 9. All the way back around some of the earlier races of the season's histories. James Krahula led that respective race, referred to as 49 led. Let's take a look at the live points. Turning out to be very intriguing. Tony Schowen still in a decent spot with all this shuffling. Taylor, not so much now.
Yeah, Tony is doing exactly what he needs to do in this race, where all of these other competitors are pressing really, really hard. They're trying maybe a little bit too hard to get through, and they're having some incidents. Tony's just been running a really solid race. He's been consistently up front. He's been aggressive when he needs to, but most of the time he's just been content to sort of sit there in that 2nd or 3rd spot, and it's really, really serving him well. And this is a very veteran type of drive from the likes of Tony Schowen, Joe Branch as well, and Alex Van de Sant. He's doing a great job as well. Don't count him out of this if he continues to do this well for the rest of the race, because he is quickly getting himself back up into that championship discussion as well.
So it's all going to become intriguing on how this all plays out. Keep in mind the fuel burning is also coming into play, and this shouldn't be a surprise. This is a normal trend. When you know you're good to go on fuel, try and make the car lighter if you can.
Yep, absolutely. One of the things with iRacing is you can't get the fuel quite exactly where you want, so you just burn as much as you can. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's annoying, but everyone does it, so everyone has to do it.
I mean, in real life, you can't get the fuel to be exactly, say, 14.127578666665 gallons. You basically have to judge it by the amount of time in the tank, etc. you put in the fuel.
Yeah, that's very true. At the same time, most of the time in the real world, what you'll see is they'll slightly underfuel the car, and the driver in the car will have to save just a little bit. Whereas in iRacing, it because of the fuel burning under caution, it pays to maybe slightly overfill the car. So it's one of those things where everyone does it, everyone sort of puts up with it, and it's part of the race. But not my favorite thing in the world to do, but I do it as well. So yeah.
So I will ask you this then. As talked about earlier, you are the defending winner here from IndyCar action, and the IndyCar Series comes here on Wednesday as well. What do you think are the notes being taken for some of the drivers? As I will say, with keeping an eye on things on who's keeping track of this race, there are several who are taking those notes tonight.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is really, really working on the patience here. We've seen a number of drivers just... They've gotten too aggressive too early in this race, and it's so easy to do because you feel like these laps are just ticking away very, very quickly, but at the same time, there's so many laps to do at this track. You really need to practice that patience and just let the race come to you. And a lot of the drivers that are left, rather than attacking too hard, they've come back and made the race come to them rather than them trying to take the race from the other drivers, and it's served them really well. So I think that is the main note that a lot of these drivers need to be taking away for Wednesday night.
We'll see if they listen to those notes. As we get ready to go back racing, lights are out. Tony Schauwen in control of the field, then it's Enzotto, then it's Van de Sande. Top three with 44 laps to go. And the Graphics Esports 175 at Iowa, presented by Midwest Simulations. Big stack up on the green flag launch. Your contact for second. Tony Schauwen pulls off and away as they start to scrap behind him. Here comes Joe Branch trying to take a peek for third position as a result of that checkup. Takes the bottom away from Van de Sande in through 3 and 4. Joe Branch back inside the podium positions. It's Adrenaline Motorsports in first and third as a result of the shuffling.
This was exactly what Tony Schauwen and Joe Branch wanted here. They're in prime position to take advantage and take control of the top of this race once again, as they have so many times. But George Enzotto does not necessarily want that to happen, and he's going to fight tooth and nail. George Enzotto is also one of the drivers who sort of learned the lesson. He knows that if he can stay on that outside, it's very tough for the driver in third place to actually get by here. So I think that what you're going to see is George Enzotto is going to try and force Joe down to the bottom and trying to keep him down there as we see some battling back in the field as well.
Don't forget, Factory Back still has some presence remaining in this race. Molecular the third is up to 5th. Nick DeGroot, we haven't mentioned his name in hours, is up to 6th. All while Tony Schauwen is playing the lines. They were bump drafting last time by down the straightaways. Now Branch is under the bottom line. And Enzotto nearly gets pushed up into. He gets the pull as Tony Schauwen goes back and forth down the straightaways, back to the bottom for the corner.
Yeah, Tony's working both sides of the track right now, and even slightly in the middle, you see them spreading out, trying to just get that clean air on those wings, get the maximum amount of grip through the corners. But all of this battling is backing them up just a little bit, and Alex Van de Sande really wants to join this battle, and he's even looking 3 wide here at a couple of points here, Justin.
8 cars now under a blanket, separated by about 0.8 of a second. Near contact with Joe Branch coming up. They're not going up to the wall anymore. They're staying a lane away from the wall down the straightaways. Schauwen, middle of the racetrack once more, still in the lead. Branch now goes for the dive. And Zoto goes really hard across the bumps, still gets the pull. Now he goes for the bump draft as he dives for the race lead. George Anzotto wants the lead back, takes it away with a slide jump as Shawan goes underneath.
What a move from Anzaldo, but Shawan is not done. He wants it back, and he takes it through turn 1 here, Justin. That was some great driving from George Anzaldo. We've not seen him this aggressive this late in the race in a very long time, but he has the speed to be able to do this, and Iowa is one of his favorite tracks, and he is showing that right here.
Shawan now back up to the point, plays the middle line this time, and Van de Sant now gets the run on Branch. Malechka the third waits patiently behind the battle for third, but Anzotto wants the lead again. This time goes to the outside line of Tony Shawan. That's worked decently, but Tony Shawan squeezes him. Joe Branch nearly makes contact behind, and Anzotto tries to get to the right rear tire. Shawan again to the bottom line, and Anzotto pushed up the track, nearly comes across Joe Branch's right front tire as he saws him back off.
Moments from disaster so many times through there, but these drivers managed to stay off each other. It's so easy to get the lines crossed up here, especially on corner exit, as we see George Anzaldo goes for the lead, and Tony Shawan responds back on the inside again.
It built up a gap of about 2 seconds from 8th to 9th as they nearly make more contact. Joe Branch takes advantage for second. Anzaldo not giving up though, now on the high side. Branch now takes a shot for the race lead. Side by side once more for second spot though, down the straightaway. Anzotto forced to check up. Tony Shawan boxes him in. Coming up to 30 to go, this time by the stripe from Iowa Speedway. Anzotto nearly turns himself, dives his way to the bottom. Tony Shawan spooked up the track. They nearly slam. Branch dives underneath. Van de Sant up to second.
This is the opportunity for Alex Van de Sant that he's been waiting for. They got so absorbed in the fight between George Anzaldo and the two Adrenaline Motorsports boys that they did not see Alex Van de Sant on that outside line. Now George Anzaldo trying to cross over Alex Van de Sant going back to the inside. This is some very close racing. Meanwhile, up front, Tony Shawan is just running that middle lane, and he is disrupting the flow of everyone behind him as George Anzaldo goes back to the inside one more time.
This isn't a good recipe for how this could fare. Robert Malechka the third, though, he wants the lead. He wants to get around the carnage. He gets to the outside of Anzotto. Anzotto nearly squeezes him into the wall. Following on behind is the group. The factory-backed cars join the fray as Anzotto nearly pushes up a second time. Anzotto not making things easy as he late arcs Malechka the third up the racetrack.
Now Joe Branch battling back on the inside. I was starting to think that maybe his tires had taken a little bit of a beating being on the inside for so long, but he is starting to try and fight back. Both Van de Sant and Branch have gone backwards here. Meanwhile, Malechka and De Groot have really gone forward, and is those factory-backed boys, as you were saying, they are going towards the front as George Anzaldo takes the lead of the race again, but Tony Shawan tries to take it. George Anzaldo cuts off on the inside.
George Anzotto, the boss man, to the race lead. And this is a huge opportunity for George Anzotto. He does not want to let a chance to win in Lionheart Racing Series competition slip through his fingers. Joe Branch has been slipped on back to 7th position as this is all fared out. But Tony Shawan to the outside now. Tries the second and third lines. Can't get the run to build up as Branch tries to recover. Big block from Anzotto. Shawan back inside down the front stretch. Closing stages to 22 to go. Next time by.
The advantage for Shawan here, if there is any advantage, is that he has spent most of this stint up at the very front of this field, whereas George Anzaldo has been back in the field. He's been using up his tires just a little bit more, so Tony might just have that little bit of a tire advantage coming through. But it is very close between these two drivers, and they're starting to put a little bit of a gap from second to third place here, Justin.
But for how long will that gap remain? Keep in mind, Malechka the third has been riding around the back of that train to group. They're up to third and fourth. How are their tires? Now after having to deal with some of the aero push, but also not making the multiple dives we've seen. Anzotto defends hard to the yellow line. 20 to go, this time by for the Graphics Esports 175 at Iowa. Shawan still waiting for his chance. Everyone else 3/10 back.
Yeah, what Shawan is doing here is he's trying to keep up his momentum on the on the high side here. It's very important at Iowa to keep that momentum going, because the only way to get a run here is to have a little bit of a speed difference coming off the corner, so that you can really use that draft and then slingshot by the car in front of you. So what Shaun is doing is he's forcing Anzaldo to use up his tires, run low. He's running a nice, comfortable line up the track, and he is just setting up George Anzaldo for this run to the green flag as we get, or run to the checkered flag as we get closer to 10 to go here.
This has become a barn burner, but Tony Shaun wants to break through the barn. Underneath, 17 to go, and Anzaldo nearly claps the wall, and Anzaldo nearly claps Shaun back. Tony Shaun takes the point into turn 1. He squeezes up this time. Here comes Malechka III to join the fray. Anzaldo still trying to squeeze hard as Shaun gets clear once more, but here comes Factory Backed, and they're bringing everyone else with them.
Really, really tense stuff, but they're doing a great job of staying off of each other, giving each other just enough space to make this work. George Anzaldo's now taking that roll back from Tony Shaun. Now he's looking to the outside here, just trying to build up the momentum. Tony Shaun is defending to the inside here really, really hard. He does not want to let George Anzaldo get that momentum and get that run. This is very, very tight stuff as he goes to the inside. George Anzaldo slides up in front of Tony Shaun, but Tony Shaun crosses him over. What a move from both of those drivers there.
Tony Shaun still able to hold on. 14 to go. Anzaldo driving the race of his life. Inside again, another slide. Tony Shaun diamonds off. Holds up the momentum, does Anzaldo. Tony Shaun forced to check up. 13 to go.
Unbelievable racing here, Justin. Tony Shaun, he's not thinking anything about the championship right now and how much points that he can gain. He is focused on George Anzaldo and trying to find a way to beat the league organizer and league founder here. But George is having none of it. This is a fantastic drive from George Anzaldo. Probably the best drive that I've seen him have in Lionheart, at least since I have been a part of this. This is absolutely fascinating racing to watch.
He's won just one Lionheart event in his career. That was in the IndyCar Series. And now he's looking for a second. 10 to go this time by. They're all scrapping behind. But it's Tony Shaun trying to get the run. Oh, wow, they went 2-3 wide at the back of the pack.
Yeah, they're scrapping it out at the back of the pack, but the battle that we're watching right here is at the
there
front.
he
Tony
goes!
Shaun, oh no! George Anzaldo spins!
The whole lead group crashes. Several cars into this safer barrier. Caution is out with 9 to go. And you could kind of see it coming, but you hate to see it. And that big.
Yeah, I was about to say they had been racing for so hard for so long. It was just one of those things that it was bound to happen sooner or later. Just one errant dive to the inside, one extra block, just nowhere to go for Tony Shaun. Runs into the back of George Anzaldo, spins him around, and then there's a whole heap of cars come piling in, as well as cars spinning on the exit of the corner as well.
Here's the look. And then Shaun goes around too and collects everybody.
Yeah, that's Nick DeGroot, Robert Malechka. Most of the top of that field, I believe that the two cars that really got through that were Matt Houston and Joe Branch as well. Or sorry, Caleb Benchy. Caleb Benchy and Joe Branch were the two that really got through. They just snuck underneath, but it really took out all of the top 5 there.
Caleb Benchy might have just had this race fall in a platter for him. There are a grand total of, if my count is right, 7 or 8 clean cars left because of the biggest wreck of the day on caution 8. Malechka III could not afford a bad race, Andrew. The rest of the way, he was in it. That could be devastating for his hopes.
That could be devastating for his hopes, Tony Shaun's hopes, that Huge championship implications with just that one move there. Another thing to note there, Justin, is that Joe Branch was the only driver to take tires on that caution, and he is only down to 8th position because that wreck did take out so many of the lead lap cars that he only lost about 5 positions there. So it'll be fascinating to watch as we come to this green flag here. If we do remain green, whether these fresh tires will be able to do battle with these 50-lap old tires in front of them.
I'm really intrigued on how this could play out. Again, looking at some of your big movers. Up 22 is Samuel Ryman as a result of the incident. He was able to avoid the trouble in the second pack. Trevor Malone, we haven't mentioned his name all day, up 14. Guyon, who was involved in earlier wrecks, back to 5th. AJ Musselman is still a lap down with this caution. And this, in turn, brings us to the final restart of the race, because when the green flag flies, we'll be past the point of no return here for this one. So how does this all play out now? Because there is a strong chance we get a new race winner. Let's put it that way. You also have Joe Branch on fresh tires. You have drivers, in some cases, remember for Houston and Gonzo, who have pitted on different cycles, who are on 10-lap fresher tires. On top of that, then the top 5. I'm not sure what we're about to get here, Andrew. Let's put it that way.
I'm not sure what just happened, let alone what's about to happen. Caleb Benchy, Samuel Ryman, Alex Guyon. What did I say at the top of this race? The number one thing was patience, and patience has brought in a lot of these drivers right to the front of this field. So we'll have to see what happens here, whether that patience will pay off for a lot of these drivers, I think.
Looking like a 4-lap shootout as the first-time starter and Gonzo has elected to come on down for fresh tires now. And will sacrifice a couple positions. Alexander Van de Sant was able to get some repairs done. So that brings us up to 9 cars running. On the lead lap, Tony Showen is running several laps down. But the lights are out. The reset. Caleb Benchy, Charles Teed, Trevor Malone, Samuel Ryman, Alex Guyon, Matt Houston, Joe Branch, Alexander Van de Sant, Gary Godso are the drivers on the lead lap. This is not how we were expecting things to fare out, but now, get your popcorn out. The Graphics Esports 175 at Iowa, presented by Midwest Simulations, comes down to a 4-lap shootout. iRacing pace car makes its way off. Green flag waits. Big checkup for second on back as off and away goes the race first car. Lean start for the 29 machine, but third on back fights hard. Ryman all over the back wing of Trevor Malone. While Caleb tries to run with 3 to go, he has a 5-car length advantage.
Very big gap for Caleb Benchy, and this is exactly what he needed. This might just be enough to be able to hold on to that top spot. Charles Teed and Trevor Malone, Samuel Ryman, they really need to work together here to get back up to the lead of this race, as we see them starting to close just up a little bit here, Justin.
The lead has compressed down to 3-car lengths. Coming up to the white flag this time by... How will things fare out? 4 cars within range. Joe Branch is up to 5th on the fresh tires. White flag is out. Final lap from Iowa. Caleb Benchy tries to defend. The dive from Charles Teed. Teed nearly gets to the left rear tire. Benchy continues to defend hard to the bottom of the racetrack. One final corner. Caleb's done it. He wins the Graphics Esports 175 at Iowa, presented by Midwest Simulations.
Unbelievable race there, Justin. I honestly don't know what I've just seen between a surprise winner here from Caleb Benchy and that incident that we had with just under 10 to go. It was an incredible race, but Caleb Benchy, you must say he if anyone at the end really deserved to win, it must have been Caleb Benchy, because he really stayed in and around that top 10 all race. He kept his nose really clean, and he drove just a really smart race, really good execution on that final restart, and he's taken home the winner's medal here.
The 9th different winner of the 2021 Lionheart Speedway Series season in its inaugural campaign. Unbelievable how things fared out tonight here from Iowa Speedway. Let's take a look at your unofficial race results presented by Carnox. As Caleb Benchy comes away with a victory for Team Race First Orange. Charles T is the 10th back. Ends up coming in second position with Trevor Malone quietly in third. Samuel Ryman, a strong finish in fourth position with Joe Branch, and his tire gamble not paying off to gain enough time. He did within half a second though to the top 5. Alex Gouillon, Matt Houston, Gary Gotso, the last drivers in the lead lap, along with Alexander Van de Sant. AJ Musselman was pinned a lap down after pitting under green flag conditions. 11th went to Tony Showen. He was driving on the apron coming to the green flag. He finishes 7 laps down in this race. With Robert Malechka the third, a huge blow to his chances after missing several rounds early in the campaign. He's involved in the big one. 8 laps down is where he finishes. And what could have been for George Enzotto in line for his best finish of the year? Instead, it's a 13th for the Synergy Motorsports blue car. Jeff Gion in 14th, DeGroot 15th, with Mike Rickney in 16th, also involved in the massive one. Matt Taylor crashed with 50 to go. 17th is where he finishes. Ron Hacker, Paul Jenkins, Luis Gonzalez Nunez round out the top 20. 21st went to Dakota Maid. He at one point was your race leader, but wrecked from the lead. One of several drivers to do so tonight in the leader's curse. Alexis Newsom had a rough go at it tonight. 22nd is where she finishes, with Ken Hacker 23rd. Christopher Barrett Rolfe, a huge blow to his championship hopes for Scotty Autosport in 25th. Then Chris Fowler, Dean Mull, Matt Wagner round out your entrants. Tyler Graff has a lot to discuss from race control. Your fastest lap went to Joe Branch in the closing stages. That brings us into our HyperX post-race show. As we take a look at the live points, this does not factor in the drop, keep in mind, but that is a lot of changes. Let's put this into perspective, Andrew. A lot has changed after tonight.
A lot has changed, but not as much as we were necessarily expecting. The one thing with that big one near the end is it did take out a number of drivers who were battling, such as Tony Showen, such as Robert Malechka, that were looking to gain even more on the likes of Barrett Rolfe and Matt Taylor. So if there is one thing that Barrett Rolfe can take as a consolation for this disaster of a race that he had today, it's that most of the rest of the competitors here, barring maybe Alex Van de Sant, who may have just brought himself back into championship contention here, Barrett Rolfe can take a little bit of solace in the fact that everyone in this sort of top 6, top 7, top 8 here did not have a very good day here. So it didn't necessarily end up impacting the championship just as much as we thought, but at the same time, it's created some fascinating scenarios for the races going forward.
I'm very intrigued once the drops are factored in how the points are going to shake out too. Again, the HyperX post-race show for the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. It's worth noting that Caleb Benchy is currently setting things up for communications in terms of his celebrations from HyperX Victory Lane. Let's take the opportunity to speak with some of the podium finishers. Trevor Malone went from 17th to 3rd. Trevor, you were able to survive the big one as the top 5 all crashed into the corner. Congratulations on your podium finish, first of all. Trevor, how are you feeling?
Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm feeling pretty great now. Had a pretty rough season for a while now. Just getting caught up in other people's mess and such. But I'm glad I got a top 3 finish at least. That'll help me out in points just a little bit, but I'm having fun. That was great.
It was a wild race, to say the very least. What was your approach, though, for tonight? Because we didn't see you really up towards the front until the closing stages. What was that approach? Survive.
Literally, that's all. Just don't get caught up in wrecks, slow down as soon as possible, and just survive. I didn't want to, push it this race. I was constantly almost about to spin most of the race, so just trying to survive is probably the best point of this race, if anything.
This is your best finish of the season as well. How would you describe the campaign as a whole, now knowing it's your first podium and your best finish since one of the main short tracks of the season, Phoenix?
Can I get some more, please? That's the only thing I want.
We'll see if you can get some more in the final 4 races of the campaign. Congratulations, Trevor, on the run.
All right, appreciate it, guys. See ya.
That's Trevor Malone coming home with his best finish of the year, 3rd position. But it's Caleb Benchsey who comes away with the victory today. Caleb, you are the 9th different winner this season. How does it feel to win the Speedway Series?
Oh, man, it's pretty incredible. Coming in, it's only the 2nd race, so to get a win here early is a pretty big deal, so couldn't be more happy for sure.
How would you break down your approach on how things fared out? Because obviously we weren't expecting the top 5 to have that situation. What was kind of the reaction like when you seen you go from the back of the lead group to the lead as a result of Calamity?
Yeah, honestly, I was kind of expecting that. I had a couple opportunities for, many laps there to try to make some moves, and I just kind of waited in line because see, 3-4 cars ahead that they were very, very aggressive for the lead. So I was kind of I shouldn't say hoping, but kind of expecting it to happen. Just kind of waited for it, and when it did, just try to not do anything erratic or just woe it down and keep it low. And yeah, C is kind of part of there at the bottom, so just trying to put yourself in a good spot because the track is just so tight, so chaotic. So just trying to put yourself in a good position to get around things if something happens. So all worked out.
Of course, Team Race Force has been very competitive throughout the campaign, but you give the orange banner a victory to add to Race First Red's win earlier in the campaign, as well as Race First Black's. What does that mean now to have that amount of success for Team Race First, knowing your group has been in contention throughout each of the races this year?
Yeah, it's awesome to get a Race First win. Matt Houston, obviously everyone at Race First, has supported me a lot over the last year. So to finally get to this level and get a big win like that for them is pretty huge. So obviously want to give a huge shout out to Matt and obviously all of Race First. Go check them out if you haven't. It's pretty fantastic. And also Fauna Fanny for FaunaFanny.com. Check out Custom Body Care and Wishlist Echo Blade on Steam for Sunset Arctic Games. All of those groups have definitely supported me a lot. So to get a win for all of them is a pretty big deal.
Congratulations on your first victory in the series.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Caleb Benchsey coming away with the victory today, again by 0.108 seconds over Charles Teed. An unbelievable finish, an unbelievable race. The leader's curse was in full effect throughout the entire night, Andrew. It was wild from start to finish, the amount of attrition and how you just didn't want to be the leader, it seemed.
You didn't want to be the leader, but at the same time, no one didn't want to be the leader, and that was part of the problem. There just wasn't enough patience from a lot of these drivers, and I don't blame them with 10 to go. That's the time to go, but there were a lot of drivers who took themselves out of this race way too early. It was a crazy race from start to finish, action-packed, lots of coming and going, lots of things happening throughout the field. But on the flip side, I am just as eager to get this race behind us and start looking forward to this fantastic championship fight that is getting set up here.
It's going to be wild. It's going to be busy. But now the pressure is on to make sure that there are no mistakes from this point forward. We'd like to thank you for tuning in for tonight's coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series and take the time to thank the sponsors for this evening's action. The DMLC Racing Channel. Are you looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than them. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube or like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code LionHRT15 for 15% off orders. The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com. For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off orders. Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable polyspandex. Whether you're a kart or sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz and don't forget to also use Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off orders. And it's not just those 5 names, but many more, and all the partners at the Lionheart Racing Series that help bring series such as this to fruition. To learn more about them, visit LionheartRacingSeries.com. You can also find out more about the information on the 3 competitions that the Lionheart sanctioning body runs. Lots more Lionheart competition is to come. To follow along with the action, be sure to keep up with Lionheart on social media at Lionheart Series on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. ESTV, meanwhile, has all your esports needs, while RaceBot has your V Motorsports action covered. Be sure to follow along on the various platforms including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and more. And also, don't forget to hit that YouTube subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss a moment when it comes to all the sim racing action we get to cover. The next time the Lionheart Racing Series hits the track just so happens to be here this Wednesday for the IndyCar Series for its turn at Iowa Speedway for the Midwest Simulations Iowa 200. Once again, that takes place September 22nd at 10:35 p.m. Eastern Time, 7:35 p.m. Pacific. With that, it's time to say goodbye. For Istvan Bawu, for Arjuna Kankipati, and Andrew Kinsella, I'm Justin Prince. Thank you for watching tonight's coverage on RaceBot TV and ESTV of the Lionheart Speedway Series presented by the DMLC Racing Channel. Congratulations to Caleb Etchie, your winner tonight from Iowa Speedway.